Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Jason Cutter with Cutter Consulting Group, and I started doing a series I'm calling Before, During, and After. And today I have two special guests with me, and what we're going to do is we're going to fill in that blank and talk about leadership, kind of what's been going on. This is just a fun roundtable discussion, and so I have Amit and I have John. Amit, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, give everyone a little background on you.
Sure thing. Thanks for having us, Jason. Everyone, my name is Amit Raikar. I'm the founder and leadership coach of Arc Performance Coaching, basically working with managers, teams, and helping them empower themselves and empower others. So that's what I'm all about.
Cool. And John, give everyone a little info on yourself.
Yeah, John Robinson, and I created Backup CEO under the premise that I love working with the kind of people who want a second opinion. They want a second set of eyes and a second set of ears on their business. And I'm put myself in the backup support for all those that are looking for that.
So, and what's interesting is this collection of people. So the three of us were actually all in California at the time of this kind of uncertainty. And what's interesting is, California being one of those kind of first ones to roll out a lot of rules. So we've been, especially, John's in San Diego, Amit and I are kind of Northern California, Bay Area, and North, where we've all been respectively, shelter in place for quite some time. How have things been for you, John, so far, being in the kind of the early stages of lockdown, but also in, paradise in San Diego?
Yeah, the beauty of this is I haven't driven to work since 2006. So the work from home thing, the Zoom technology, all of the video technologies I have been doing for years. That's what Backup CEO is. It is literally an online leadership support system. So this isn't that much different.
Business as usual for you.
Business as usual during the day. At night, I miss going to restaurants and bars. So that's the difference there. Is like that social aspect of going into the restaurants and bars I miss.
Yeah.
But I love the weather. I love being here and looking out the window right now and seeing a lot of sun.
Seeing it's nice. You and your 320 some odd days of sunshine a year.
Something
I know for
like
me, I am used to traveling a lot, especially for the last 14, 15 months. And last time I was home for this long, I was working on a book and I was going to Starbucks every morning for like 3 hours, like 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. every day. And so I really miss I don't miss airports. I don't miss traffic, but I miss being able to go to a coffee shop and working. So that's the big thing for you. How about you, Amit?
Similarly, a lot of the work I've been doing most recently has been working from home, but I do miss the aspect of going to meet someone for coffee or getting outside. The interesting thing, my wife, she usually would go into the office and work in the office, and so she's been working from home, and I'm grateful that we actually get along, hanging out all the time. So it's been actually kind of nice. Sitting down for lunch and having a meal together, stuff like that. But definitely interesting in a lot of other different ways, like not having a chance, both of our sets of parents are local in the Bay Area, but not getting a chance to see them or other friends who we really enjoy spending time with.
Yeah, no, and what's interesting is that's really a shared experience by, most everyone all over the place. So for our discussion today, here's what I want. And just for anybody watching this or listening, and before you even logged into this, probably aware, the goal of this is not for any kind of sales pitch. This isn't, some big call to action at the end. It's really just the three of us came together and wanted to kind of share our experiences before all this with the virus and the uncertainty, what's going on now, and then maybe some thoughts about what it might be like when things return to some kind of normal. And it's really just a conversation with the three of us. So I want to make sure everyone understands, like, this is not about, big sales pitch or promo. It's just giving value, connecting with people. So let's start with Amit, and or John, whoever wants to chime in first. Let's talk about kind of the before versus the during, right? Because I want to talk about before, during, and after this, kind of the comparison of how life was or how leadership was being run or what people focused on before, and then like compared to what it is now.
John, you want to take it?
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, you know what? I will. There's a part of what I'm noticing and what I'm paying attention to. And this is, what is this, month one of this? I don't even know how many weeks we've been
Is this like in my county where I'm at, this is starting the 4th week. So
okay, so let's say month one. I would say at the end of 2019, there were more people that kind of focused on themselves, not paying attention to their health, paying more attention to consuming, paying more attention to fun. And that's just personal leadership. When I think of leadership, we start from how we lead in our households first. And I would say that's what people were more paying attention to in December. Now you can see people actually paying attention to their health. And what do we see? We see face masks. We see people actually staying in the house. And in some areas in San Diego, 2 weeks ago, the beaches were full. So not anymore, but now people are paying attention to, caring about other people by staying out of their way and staying in their home. So there's been a shift from someone thinking about themselves to thinking about others. I also think there's a shift in the health, like paying attention to, what they're eating. And now some of this is kind of hope too, because I know there's probably some people that aren't paying attention to what they're eating and eating a lot of packaged goods and eating unhealthy food. But then there are people paying attention to eating good foods because it directly impacts their immune system. And on the third observation is what impacts immune system is distress. And I would say that now more than ever, people are paying attention to what they're worrying about. And maybe too much to a fault to where they're getting sicker. And then on the other side of that is maybe they're doing meditation and journaling to reduce that stress so they can have a higher immune system. So there's some really fundamental shifts that I'm watching right now. And I'm watching in the mirror. I'm not just talking about what I see out there. That's what I'm paying attention
to. I'd agree. I think one of the first things that came up with that idea is the default before was it can be so easy to be busy being busy, and this idea of hustle and bustle. If from the leadership perspective, I'd say there's a lot of running to pay attention to the urgent things, putting out the fires, whether the urgent things might be important or not. And I'd like to believe, and at least, definitely seeing that, those that were sort of really embracing very empowered leadership mindset, that they were also paying attention to things that were important, but not necessarily urgent. And now the shift is like, you can't, it's getting very real and raw about, is this really important of what's showing up for me? There's a lot of immediate needs that need to be paid attention to, as John mentioned about health, similarly for myself. But then really things starting to show up as like, okay, what is actually really important? Am I connecting with my friends, colleagues, family, all the things that we know we should be doing? But now it's like a real serious mirror of how well are we actually doing it? And now there's an opportunity to shift for ourselves to say, hey, how can we do that for our own health and the health of the people around us?
Well, yeah.
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I want to add to that because I just realized that I sent a post because I thought about this, like, wait a second, didn't I send a post on, how to keep my mind in the best position to see what's possible? I mean, that's what I sent this post out. I don't know, Amit, if you remember that, but I sent it out a month ago and I was like, man, this is what I was paying attention to. And I'm still paying attention to it. It's forget about myself and focus on others. Forget about my commodity, meaning what I do, and focus on my relationships. So I went through this long series of forget and focus. And I won't go through all of them, but because I'm looking at them, it's like 12 things. but it was about getting in the mindset of saying, how can I keep my mind in the best position to see the best in this situation? Because this is a tough time right now.
Well, and I think that's super important. And I know for myself and other people I've spoken with, especially leaders of companies, it's about, what were they doing beforehand that they might have been doing because they felt like they should, right? Like the big should. I should wake up at 5 a.m. I should do this. I should blah, 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 like fill in all these blanks, versus now when it's really real and it's more, kind of a crisis mode, and people are at different levels of crisis. But okay, now what doesn't matter as much, right? Am I more effective waking up at 5 a.m. or am I not? Like what's working, what's serving, and then how do I, stay healthy for myself so that I can then be there for other people? Like I think that's huge, like you're saying.
Yeah, and I like when we use this time to dig deep. And when I think about forgetting about what I've lost and focus on the current opportunities, because what we will see after this has calmed down is that the people who paid attention to what the opportunities were possible versus the ones who missed their old life and spent their time wondering and wandering about that, they didn't take advantage of the moment. And this is a divine moment to create. And that's what I would say my overall theme has been over the last 2 months, is to continue to create.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's similar to when I hear people or I see someone and all they're talking about is their glory days, their high school days, their college days. Like they haven't moved past that because that was like a fundamental thing and a happy spot in their life, whatever it was. And it's the same thing with this, if I understand what you're saying, which is, as a leader running a company or even a leader of yourself, that was the good old days. And I just, I can't face the new reality. It's like, okay, well, that was, and what can you do now? How can you be happy and successful in this?
Yeah, and I'll walk you through this, Jason. So let's say, forget about the old trophies.
Yeah.
Focus on what? And you fill in the blank. Forget about my old trophies. Focus on what?
Yeah.
And what would you say? What would you say? You probably have some old trophies somewhere. What sport did you play in high school?
I didn't play any. In fact, it's a little known fact that nobody really knows, but now the world will know. The only sport I officially played in high school for the high school team was badminton. Being a tall white guy, I actually did okay, but no. Otherwise, no. I did
no
not
trophies in badminton?
No trophies. I got my letter, but there was no trophies in that. No, so I don't have, it's interesting. I don't have those trophies, and I've done a lot of work over the years to avoid getting attached to certain segments in the past, and just, that's the past, use it in conversations, but not, all the time.
So Amit, for you, what trophies do you have, or do you have any trophies in the past? And then if we said, let's forget the trophies and focus on blank, what would you say?
The word that keeps showing up for me is empowerment. And so this is the piece about, I would frame it differently about the way that you said about forget about myself. Because I know my personal tendency, and this is my own leadership growth and my own leadership mindset, and it's actually similar with many of the clients that I work with, is that many of them have such a service mindset that many times they're not taking care of themselves first. So empowerment really for oneself, back to the idea of health, really paying attention to what's important. So then I'm best suited to be able to help empower others. That's the piece that I see even more present. Yeah, and then there's another theme that's really showing up for me, but I'll see if that maybe emerges as we keep talking through.
Yeah, well, when you said that, and I know that Jason said in the beginning that there's no call to action, there to me is not a call to action, but there is something to pay attention to.
Some homework for sure.
For sure, for sure. And what shows up for me is when I said forget about myself, focus on others, that's also forget about self-carelessness and focus on self-care. Because I have noticed that self-care during this time is very important. Special mental health self-care, because this is in the last 20, 30 years, I think there's more stress and more worry than there's ever been.
Yep.
And self-care is important. So for those that are listening, that distinction of focusing on others does not mean forget about self-care.
So, and it's what's fascinating is, like, I feel like there's some areas where I'm strong, which would be the self-care and balancing that out. The other part for me that's coming up in leading and with my consulting and what I'm creating, because I'm going into a big creating mode as well, which is to drop myself, like forget about the self limitations or the worry about what people are going to think or whatever's holding back. And for me, like the self-care I am solid on, and it's really about, okay, how do I just do stuff anyway, right? How do I finish the book, and how do I finish the course, and how do I, just do the things that I might not have done before and just, go all in.
Jason, how do you get past that resistance? Because right now, this is, again, a great moment to start something. And I see more people paralyzed with the start. So how do you get past your own resistance? Because I know I have some techniques, and I know Amit has some techniques, but I'd like to hear yours first.
All right, I'll throw mine out, but then you guys are the pros on this. The first one is, I remember that I've survived 100% of my bad days so far. And I haven't died yet, no matter what anyone has said or whatever feedback I've gotten. The other thing is, I always remember that everybody is going through something. Everybody is either going through something, has been through something, or they don't know it yet, but they're about to go through something. And I don't mean this like virus thing. I just mean life, like capital L life. And people's feedback or responses, everybody's going through something, so don't worry about like what it may look like, and then really it's connected to a bigger, higher reason why, like WHY, like capital letters, like why am I doing it, and why is that more important than anything else that may happen, negativity, feedback. Those are the big things I remind myself whenever I get stuck in that loop.
Nice.
Amit?
The way that there's two motivations or two things that are helping me let go of the stuckness. One is recognizing that one of the things that's really shown up is there's an immediate need and opportunity to serve and help people. And I think the more I've been able to see and connect to that, the more that I've been leaning into things that I was maybe feeling a little challenged before to try, but now it's like, hey, kind of like you were saying, Jason, there's an opportunity here. And then in terms of like actual tools or tactics, there's one I found myself sort of like stumbling upon as I was reflecting on this too, where I just said, when you're feeling lost, consult your GPS. Gratitude, purpose, and service. So, the classic cliche things of, what can you be grateful for? There's a very visceral opportunity to practice that. Purpose, like you were saying, Jason, what is the bigger thing that I can be connecting to now? Because there's a lot of people hurting. And I would say comparatively, I'm in an incredible position of privilege and safety and whatnot. And I think this is actually an opportunity for a bigger sort of global purpose. The stat that we've probably heard, or that the average, at least American, may not have more than like a month's worth of savings. And now everybody, or so many people, are seeing that. And how have we done as a society to help really support and have a safety net? I honestly think we haven't done a good job, and that's where a lot of the stressors are coming from. And so then the opportunity then to be in service of actually starting, if it's feeling overwhelming, that the small act can be as simple as calling up a colleague or a friend who I've lost touch with, just to connect with them, and that can be an act of service right there. And then obviously that can be scaled up into more challenging things, like what you're doing with these series, Jason, providing this as an act of service to help support people.
John, so what do you like, what are the things that you help either individual leaders or business leaders, with getting through that
Yeah.
unstuckness?
Yeah. I'm smiling because I heard Amit talk about safety. And there's an actual starting thing that I'm involved with right now, which is producing 30,000 safety goggles for the medical professionals. And one of my companies, one of my backup CEO companies, is a sunglass company. So when we looked at the idea of said, how can we be of service here? I said we were a sunglass company. I didn't say safe medical safety
Right.
glass company. So the first question that we answered was, do I believe it's possible? In the spirit of low, medium, and high, do I believe it's possible for us to produce 30,000 safety goggles? High, yes, a very high. Second question, there's three questions. Second question, do I know how to start? What I've noticed on most people who do not start is they don't know how to start. They don't know who to call. They don't know where to go. So in our existence, we produce sunglasses, which are in essence safety glasses. They might not be medical goggles, but we know manufacturing. So do we know how to start low, medium, and high? Medium to high. We've never produced them before, but we know how to start the process to figure out how to do it. And then the third question is, how much do I want to do it? That to me has been the fuel for most people that I see that are wildly successful, is that they have this fire on how much that they want to do it. Our answer was extremely high. I know I didn't give you extremely high as a fourth option, but it was extremely high. Now, of course, I wish it was that easy to say those three questions and then that's how we go. No, resistance comes up immediately after I just said that we scored ourselves in high and all that. We still have resistance. And the resistance is we can't because. And we just go through as many reasons why we can't because. And you can spend a lot of time doing that.
Yeah.
But when you're done, let's just say give yourself 5 minutes. Brainstorm all the we can'ts because, and then give you another 5 minutes with we can if. So I'll keeping the example of our sunglass company. We can't because we've never done it before. We can if we talk to people who have. We can't because we don't have the budget for it. We can if we move some money around, delay some projects. So the exercise of we can't because and we can if is all about energy of creation. There is nothing that you can't because and add a we can if, because it's like using a magic wand. I used to ask this question all the time. If you had a magic wand, how would you use it? Do you know people know how to use magic wands? And I don't even know if there is one out there, but they know how to use it. I've never had one. Matter of fact, I think I need that as a prop. One day I probably should just go buy a magic wand and say, how would you use this?
Yeah.
We all have a tendency to know how to create when we know we can if the boundaries or the constraints were changed, if the rules were changed, if we had more of this and less of that. So that's what I would say for those leaders that are struggling to start, go through that exercise.
Yeah. And when I hear you talk about that, two things came up for me. The first one is you touched on it, which is the intention, right? Like your desire to do it is extremely high. Like you want to do it. It is something you need to do. And when your intention is clear, like how you do it doesn't matter as much as like, we're just going to do it, right? If you have the intention to get from here to there, you will figure, like, I use this analogy all the time. If your intention is to go on a road trip from California to New York, like you will make it happen. How you get there, what road you take, who knows what's going to happen, life is going to pop up. But like, if that is your intention, you will figure it out, right? Go ahead.
I'm going to add to that, Jason. One of my mentors, Dan Sullivan, has this premise called who, not how. He believes that the complexity of most ideas only occurs when we start thinking about how we're going to do it, instead of thinking about who we know who's done it before.
Yeah.
And when you focus on the who is the kind of person who can develop medical goggles? Or who's the kind of person who has created a series of conversations and packaged them and put them in the world so that people can feel energy from them? That's been a huge shift for me through the years, because I used to be that dude who worried about the how.
Yeah.
And I am the guy. If you ever need your house painted, I'm not your guy, because I can tell you 10 who's that can paint your house.
Yeah.
I don't know the how, because I don't like the paint.
Yeah.
So I focus on those who's.
But what's interesting about that, though, is that you have your own zone of genius and zone of passion and focus where you know the hows, right? Mm-hmm. So there's the ones where you're going to, personally leverage the who's and be like, I don't paint houses, but I know who does. Or you need a leadership coach. Okay, now I'll help you with the how, and we're going to drive this forward. The other part that's interesting when both of you guys were talking about it, and I think this is always important. I learned this one years ago, for any leader, anyone struggling with moving or taking action or this difficult time, is it something that's burning inside of you, or is it an itch that needs to be scratched? Right? If there's a project you're working on or something you want to get through or something you want to do or launch, is it just an itch? Because if it's an itch, when you hit resistance or not enough people are engaging or want to take part in whatever it is, then it will die off, right? If it's something that's burning inside, you will push through and go through every wall like the Kool-Aid man, right? Like you will just keep going because it's burning inside of you. And I think that's always an important one. There's a lot of stuff that I feel the itch to do or I feel like I should do. And I'm like, I just know it's not going to sustain, versus the burning things that, especially right now, it's like, okay, what's burning? What do you feel that it does not matter what happens externally. This is all just internal fire.
What's shown up as you say that, Jason, is that back with the mindset piece, there's even if there's an itch, I think how we identify with how we approach it, maybe this is getting back to the who of if I'm starting to define the success of this project, of what I'm trying to do, and the success of the accomplishment or the success of the status that I get from it, the more I'm identified to that, the more then I'm going to be in a place where I might trip up. But what I hear when I hear you talk about the fire, the focus isn't on myself. The focus is on what needs to be done. What am I driven to do? What am I driven to serve? What am I driven to make an impact? I would imagine for the business leaders out there who are struggling with this is like the more you can stay focused on recognizing, like you said earlier, about they're not the only ones going through this, and if they're used to being the smartest person in the room or having the answer whenever somebody's coming to them and say, hey boss, how do I deal with this? And if right now they don't know, if they identify as I'm the person that knows, it's going to be really difficult to get into the after, right? So we're in the during to be sustaining enough. And that's not to say there aren't very real situations that need to be addressed, but being able to see, okay, how can I actually lean into now this communal perspective of whether it's reaching out to other business leaders, reaching out to other colleagues, reaching out to other peers, like John and I, we're peers and friends, and being able to lean on the collective support here, that is absolutely a leadership mindset. I think in the West, we definitely, there's a skewed perspective of the leader is the number one person at the top leading the way and leading the charge. And it's like, no, there's a whole other perspective through the lens of servant leadership, or saying, hey, I'm here to serve you. How can we get through this together? that's going to help, I think, fuel my ability to keep moving forward in this difficult times, and not only rely on myself, but it's like when I'm down, I can reach out to others, and when others are down, I can reach out and help them. So that's what was showing up for me as you were bringing up those last couple of topics.
Well, and that's some good points, especially as we're, talking about the after, right? So who knows what's going to be like. We can all kind of guess and, philosophize about what it's going to be like afterwards, how quickly it's going to be. But, maybe John, one thing that I was thinking about that, maybe we could talk about here in the during and then the after, right? This kind of weird, uncertain period, is that burning fire, these projects or these things, especially business leaders and or personal leadership. You talked about health early on, and Amit talked about self-care, where really looking long-term, playing the really long game, in my opinion, is what makes anything successful, right? Like if you want to be healthy, lose a pound a month, do that for 3 years, but just make a new lifestyle and be consistent, instead of crash diet, right? And John, what are you seeing people doing now? Are they thinking long term? How are you helping people think long term? That's what I'm thinking about, this after, whether it's in 3 weeks or maybe it's 12 months. What is a good mindset leadership kind of practice now?
So here's the word. The word that shows up for me is evolution. And in the spirit of evolution, right now is the perfect moment to evaluate your capabilities. So if you're trying to start something, again, we'll go to the paint analogy I used earlier. If I wanted to paint this entire house, I have 4 levels of capability. Either 1, I'm incompetent. 2, I'm competent. 3, I am excellent. And 4, it is a unique ability. It is a superhero strength. Well, I've already told you guys, I don't even like to paint the walls. So I'm not incompetent.
Maybe it's a superpower you just don't know you have yet, John.
Right, but here's the beauty. Here's the beauty. You have to have a passion for it too. I don't think Superman doesn't like to fly. I think he loves to fly, and he's good at it. So there's got to be some inner fire there. So this is a divine moment for transformation, to evolve, to learn, to figure out what you're incompetent at, that you want to be competent, to where that competence becomes something that's excellent, and that excellence can become a superpower. There is more freedom in your day and in your life when you're doing something that you're really, really good at. Time flies. And while the unemployment rate is the highest it's been in a long time, there are people that were probably doing jobs they didn't love. Mm-hmm. So this is a time to figure out how to transform yourself into having a better life after. So you said the long game. Here's what I see the long game. It's a simple math equation. It's commitment plus courage equals confidence and capability. I believe that capability and confidence is an outcome of commitment and courage. So, for example, I have a guitar that I can see. You guys can't see it. It's missing a string. That'll tell you how much I know how to play the guitar. So, is it a capability? Not so much. Matter of fact, I don't even know if I could change the string. I do have them somewhere. So if I just said, I'm going to commit to learning the guitar, and I'm going to have the guts and audacity to do so. And I'm going to find someone who knows. I'm going to go to the who, not the how. I'm going to go know somebody who knows how to play guitar and ask them, hey, I want to learn how to play the guitar, and they're going to help me do that. After 10 weeks, I will have confidence, more confidence, because let's say I practice every day. And after 10 weeks, I might be able to play that one song I've been trying to thumb through over the whole 10 weeks. So I would say for anybody right now, if you're figuring out what's next is, where do I want to evolve? And just have the confidence, the courage and the commitment and the confidence and the capability will come after that.
Yeah.
And that's what I share a lot. That this isn't something that I'm making up on the spot.
Right.
This is how I've guided and led, multiple teams to be better personal leaders. Because what I know to be true is it is not about one leader at the top. That's why I created Backup CEO, because I don't want to be a CEO of one company. I want to be a backup CEO of 100, because I feel like there's a good space to be vulnerable to where you support people. So that's why, hence the backup CEO. But the personal leadership side, I believe if companies can have hundreds of great personal leaders, then there won't be the need for one hero.
Yeah.
One CEO.
That's it.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Amit, what about you? The during and then the after and that kind of transition, or, what you're seeing or telling people to do in addition to, probably the same stuff that John's talking about.
What I see is the sort of discomfort that we might be experiencing right now, the discomfort of what's showing us what's not working. As we're starting to shift into after, I think there's a real opportunity to continue to pay attention to those and lean into those. And I think as I was talking with you or writing some notes about this, I said the opportunity to continue to learn from and step outside your comfort zone so that you're continuing to build more resilient practices and practices for myself, practices for my team or my clients. And I think there's, as John was saying, and there's a lot of folks, there's a very big opportunity for our own spiritual growth in this, big leadership lens and mindset. And the real opportunity is going to be, are we willing to continue to be in that as we go into the after, so that it's like, the societal camaraderie that's coming together for wanting to support each other, the moment we can walk out the door, and if we don't give a crap about the next person, then would have been, a lost opportunity there. So I think there's not letting go of the discomfort. And that's not to say like I'm purposefully seeking out, things that are, bang myself with a hammer, but it's like, okay, continue to push forward with the things that I know I'm strong with, and how can I continue to empower myself and empower others. So that's what shows up for me for after.
And combining that plus what, John's talking about, even with the guitar example, it's about taking risks, right? And that's what I'm telling people and my clients. It's about taking those risks in the things that you wouldn't normally do, breaking out of that comfort zone, being just, uncomfortable, right? So sales that would normally be done in person, now you got to use Zoom, now you got to use phone calls. You got to figure out a way, you got to move forward, hopefully, and you want to move forward, but take those risks. Like, what is it that you want to do? And try things until you figure it out, as long as the intentions are good. John, what kind of final thoughts here as we wrap this up?
I love the word risks. And when I think of risks, and I know the casinos aren't open and I'm not a gambler, but I do have some games of preference. I like craps. Sometimes I like slot machines and roulette on occasion. All of those games have different risks. They all have, they're the bets. There's some high bets. There's some low bets. And those are directly tied to how much you know about the game. The odds are still there.
Right.
But I think as you look into thinking about risks, just understand the size of the bet and how much you know about the game. Because if you increase your knowledge in that game, you can adjust some of those odds, those probabilities. So that's what showed up to me when you were just talking about risks and what you go into, because I truly believe that you can reduce the probability of failure in anything you go into if you have presence, if you have courage, and if you ask. I would say most of the guys that I've seen fail, most of the people I've seen fail, they did not ask enough people.
Makes
And
sense.
after all of this is done, I believe that this world will be more forgiving, more loving, and more helpful than it was before going into it. I see it every day walking down the street. My neighbors are saying hi to me. I didn't
Yeah.
even know my neighbors. So there's more love. There'll be more love in the world after the fact. So get in the habit of asking people for help. Get in the habit of helping people, and karma will come back. It
Yeah.
always does.
Yeah, I will tell you on the small side, the number of LinkedIn requests that I've received and accepted, and started conversations with people who do those cold, spammy type stuff. You never know, right? Like, hey, maybe that's how I can help them, serve back. Amit, let's wrap this up. Where's a good place for people to connect with you? How can people find you? If they want to get in touch.
Yeah, definitely. So you can look me up, Amit Raikar. You can email me, amit@amitraikar.com, and or find me on LinkedIn. You'll probably see me with a little picture of a fedora. So reach out to me on LinkedIn. Feel free to shoot me an email. And there's also my website, amitraikar.com. So that's how you can reach me.
Cool. And John?
Backup CEO, backupceo.com, and on all social media, just at Backup CEO. And then I will say another way to engage with me. I have conversations like this with multiple people in a day, daily calls, even a Saturday call I call a men's circle. And we have conversation like this every Saturday. So if there's men out there that want to have this type of conversation in a big setting, small groups, reach out to me, because I would love to have more people trying to worry less and create more.
And I think that's a great point, and kind of ties up everything we're talking about, leadership and mindset, which is, take care of yourself. It's a self-care. It's find peers. It's find some, mentor, even just anyone else. Because everyone, the silver lining, the nice thing about this whole thing that's happening is it's affecting everybody. It's a global thing, right? It's not just a earthquake in one part of the world and no one else can relate. I mean, this is everybody. So, reach out, find support, find someone to talk to. Build community. Now's the time to build community. There's time for opportunity. There's time for sales. There's time for business in some aspects, but it's 100% time for community. So, and then for myself, you can go to cutterconsultinggroup.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn, where I'm at a lot. Amit, John, thank you so much for joining me on our little roundtable discussion. I appreciate all of your insight and info.
Thanks so much for having us, John.
All right, guys, take care.
Cheers.